Driving transformational impact in Africa through education and leadership. And for this particular part, we've got a keynote for this segment. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about Gbenga Oyebode. And he is the founder of Aluko and Oyebode law firm, which is in Nigeria. And he's a philanthropist who's absolutely passionate about education and the arts. He's the chairman of the African Philanthropy Forum. That's known as APF. As you know, we've got delegates from the African Philanthropy Forum joining us for this segment. And he's also part of Teach for All and a trustee of the Ford Foundation, which of course funds a lot of efforts around the world. He holds one of Nigeria's highest honors as a member of the Order of the Federal Republic. He delivered this video presentation to us, so let's take a look.
I'd like to thank Trialogue for the opportunity to headline today's meeting as a keynote speaker. I've been asked to speak on the topic, driving transformational impact in Africa through education and leadership. I believe this topic articulates what ought to be the direction for development in Africa based on my personal conviction that improved access to education and value-based leadership are the keys to unlocking prosperity on our beloved continent. In addition to my role as chair of the Africa Philanthropy Forum, I'm also chair of Teach for All, a growing network of 60 independent partner organizations that work to develop local leadership and enable learning across borders. Thus, my thoughts on this topic arise from my experience leading change in these contexts. In Kenya and Sudan, there have been demonstrations and political unrest which have led to the closure of schools. In Nigeria, children in parts of northern Nigeria are at risk of being recruited into armed groups or being kidnapped, making it difficult for them to attend school. These events may appear isolated, but when taken together, a pattern begins to emerge. Only 62.5% of children in sub-Saharan Africa complete primary school, compared to 86.4% in the rest of the world. Africa has the youngest population in the world. The continent's level of education and training lies far below the global average. Thus, while it is clear that Africa is rich in resources and potential, among the numerous challenges in its path towards development is a lack of quality education and effective leadership. Reflecting on the situations in Kenya, Sudan, and Nigeria highlighted earlier, it becomes apparent that the conflicts undergirding all three countries is a result of weaknesses in leadership and governance systems. The time has come for us as Africans to rescue the continent by occupying the driver's seat of our future. To do that, we must recognize education and leadership as some of the low-hanging fruits requiring urgent attention and action. It is my belief that education is the foundation of any successful society. It empowers individuals with the skills and knowledge needed to contribute to their communities, drive businesses, and drive economic growth. It is educated people who will make the best leaders. Unfortunately, many African countries struggle to provide access to quality education, leaving millions of our children and adults without the tools they need to succeed. Leadership is also a critical component of driving transformational impact. Effective leaders are essential to ensuring that resources are allocated effectively, policies are enacted with the people's best interest in mind, and corruption is kept in check. Without strong leadership, even the most well-funded education systems can fail to deliver results. Against an exceedingly complex backdrop where our world is being refashioned by the impacts of globalization and digital revolution, climate change, the energy crisis, the burgeoning aspirations of an ever-expanding youth population, the need for the continent to find its place in the world, we must agree with Thomas Sankara that Africa is in desperate need of visionary, upstanding, and courageous leaders who are capable of meeting the increasingly complex challenges the continent is facing while serving as an inspiration to their people is key. I firmly believe that with a focus on driving transformational impact through education and leadership, Africa can unleash its full potential and rise to a new height of prosperity. Although addressing the task of driving impact through education and leadership may appear Herculean, it is important to acknowledge that there is hope. With this hope comes the need for all of us to be strategic about how we utilize these emerging opportunities. It is noteworthy that African governments are responding to the challenge at hand. For instance, Rwanda has a national curriculum focused on developing critical thinking, problem solving, and entrepreneurship skills in students. It's not surprising then that Rwanda's literacy rate is higher than what is observable across sub-Saharan Africa. Rwanda is also ranked as one of the least corrupt countries in Africa. While governments vis-a-vis public education have the responsibility of providing education to all Africans, definitely the buck does not stop there. As human beings who've been beneficiaries of the wonders of formal education, and as corporations that understand that business involves not just making profit, but leaving the world a much better place than we met it, it's time for us to rise to the challenge. Strategic philanthropy is one of the ways we can rise to the challenge of driving transformational impact. We must begin to consider empowering organizations involved in improving education, not just as part of a one-off corporate social responsibility event, but as part of our longer-term ESG activity, which are more radical and transformative way of engaging with systems. At the Africa Philanthropy Forum, where I am currently board chair, we boast of a community of partners who are at the forefront of fostering shared prosperity on the African continent through their strategic giving. Drawing on our experience in philanthropy with core interests in addressing gaps in education, leadership with support from Trialogue, we put together a breakfast session to discuss how organizations and individuals can collaborate for impact. I hope you will join that session and contribute to forging a clearer path for collaboration and action on this topic. In my opinion, there are 4 steps, and I will summarize, which it takes to transform the future of education and leadership in Africa. 1, increasing access to education, collaboration to build more schools, train more teachers, provide scholarships and other forms of support to students who will go a long way in growing a new crop of leaders who will improve the future of our continent. 2, embracing technology. Technology is increasingly being used to improve education outcomes in Africa. Investment in this regard will ensure that access to leadership resources becomes more broadly available to everyone, especially leaders at the grassroots. 3, developing leadership skills. Programs that teach civic engagement and value-based leadership, especially to young people, will become one of the catalysts for change in the foreseeable future. And 4, addressing inequality, prioritizing solutions which address systemic inequalities, such as the exclusion of nomadic children or people living with disabilities from formal education, will contribute to reshaping our future. Overall, the future of education and leadership in Africa is bright, but it will require ongoing investment and innovation to achieve the full potential of the continent. And none of that can happen without you and me. In conclusion, I invite all of you to participate in the deliberation scheduled today. Approach these discussions with an open mind, and afterward, I encourage all of us to take action, to contribute to volunteer initiatives, and to support education and leadership on the continent. Thank you very much for listening to me this morning.
How it could be right this time, but could it be right this time?
Yeah, that was really centers our minds around education and leadership. And as mentioned at the beginning, the African Philanthropy Forum delegates will have a separate breakaway session after tea. So, in fact, your tea will be on your own as well. So just please go upstairs, not here at the foyer, report to the upstairs deck, and then you'll be taken into your own breakaway sessions.